Hello everyone, welcome to this session. This is a new chapter, elemental surveying and map making. So previously we discussed about the soil. We saw the various properties of the soil, the how to prevent the soil erosion, what is soil erosion, etc., etc. We discussed so much about the soil. So today let's move on to this new chapter, the elemental surveying and map making. We'll start with the simple introduction to the elemental surveying. So in this introduction, we're going to see the definitions of the surveying. Now, what do we mean when we say surveying? Surveying, this is the science of measuring and recording distances, angles, heights, and sizes on the Earth's surface just to obtain data for which accurate plans and maps is made. So the surveying is just the process of the science of just obtaining the numbers, simply that is measuring, and recording the various parameters which include distances, angles, heights, and sizes on the various uh, points on the Earth's surface, just to obtain the data which can be useful for the plans and map making. The other definition of surveying, this is the science and the art of making all essential measurements just to determine the relative position of points or physical and cultural details above, on, or beneath the Earth's surface, and to depict them in usable form, or just to establish the position of points or details. This is the other definition of surveying, whereby it's the same as it's just the science or just the art of making the various necessary measurements which are there just to determine the various positions of points or physical or just other cultural details which are just found on the surface of the earth, and they are just you can use them to establish the position of points or details, or just can be used in various usable forms. So this is the other definition of surveying. The other one is that survey. This is the science and the art of determining the relative positions of points, that is, the locations above or beneath the Earth's surface. So this is the definition of survey. Survey is just science, while the surveying can be the process within this kind of a science. So the survey is just this art of determining the relative positions of points when you're talking about the various points within the various given locations above or beneath the Earth's surface. The other definition of surveying, this is the technique of determining the relative position of different fixtures on, above, or beneath the Earth's surface by means of direct or indirect measurements, and finally representing them on the sheet of paper known as plan or a map. So surveying also can be defined this way as kind of a technique, scientific technique, whereby it's there just to determine these relative positions of different features that are there on Earth's surface, such as valleys, mountains, hills, etc., etc. Just by the means of various ways, which can be direct or indirect measurements, which are there, and finally you can represent the given or the obtained details within a sheet of paper, just known as a plan or a map. So this is the other definition of surveying. Uh, the other one, surveying or land surveying, is the technique, profession, art, or and science of determining the terrestrial or three-dimensional points, positions of points, and the distances and the angles between them. Also, surveying is the scientific and the systematic measure of the distance, height, or the altitude and the angles between the various points on the ground. Uh, what do you mean when you say a surveyor? A surveyor or land surveyor, you can simply say that this is the professional who determines the positions on or near the surface. So the surveyor is the one who carries out the surveying process. Now, these points which are determined by the surveyor are usually on the surface of the earth, and they are often used to establish maps and boundaries for the ownership locations such as building corners or the surface locations of subsurface features or other purposes required by the government or civil, such as the property sales. So the points obtained by the surveyor are very useful for the various important issues within or just on the surface of the earth, such as can be used to establish the various maps and boundaries for the various purposes within or just on Earth's surface. Now, surveys have variety of purposes and it can be carried out in many ways depending on the methodology chosen and the objectives to be achieved. So that have to be noted that the surveys that can be done on this surface, they have a variety of the purposes and it can be carried out in various many ways. Uh, Depending on the methodology, you are talking about the various methods or techniques that are chosen and the objectives to be achieved during that process. And this is a simple illustration of the surveying process. Now, let's see the various purposes of the surveying. Therefore, and just some of the purposes on why surveying is done. The first one that determine the horizontal distance between points on the Earth's surface. So determine the horizontal distance within various points on the Earth's surface. That's why surveying is carried out to obtain that detail. The other one to determine the vertical distance or height between the points of the Earth's surface. The third one that determine the area of the piece of land or plot. So this is the other purpose of the surveying, whereby it's done just to determine the area of the given piece of land or plot on the surface. The other one is just to determine the directions of the various features on the Earth's surface. And last but not least, to determine the location of the physical and non-physical features on the Earth's surface. So you can determine the various physical and the non-physical features that can be found on the Earth's surface by simply doing this process, that is the surveying. So that's all I have for this session. We've started this new chapter, elemental surveying. And map making. That's clear for today. We've seen the simple reduction to surveying. We've seen various and the plenty of these various definitions of the surveying, and we've later on seen the various purposes on why surveying is being done. Hope that's okay, and thank you.